Hey there. My name is Mika, and I am the founder of TeamBuyIn. We are the performance pay platform for home services. And what I have noticed is that there's a lot of people telling you how to do performance pay, what performance pay is, how to make it work in your business, but they don't actually give you the step-by-step tools on actually making a performance pay plan work. And that's what this is. So, this is going to be a video showing you how to build a performance pay plan for your business from start to finish. Feel free to leave any comments, ask any questions. I'm pretty good about responding to everything. So without further ado, let's jump in. So why has performance pay gotten so popular? The main reason is that hourly pay is flawed. So hourly pay misaligns interests where either way someone loses. So if there's a slow month, the employer loses because their labor cost is going to go higher because they don't produce enough revenue and they're still paying someone a flat wage regardless. On the other end, if they go and technician produces an incredible month and they have a ton of revenue, they lose because they don't capture any of the revenue that they created. So what ends up happening is you have like hourly pay is fighting with itself. And that's a big problem in terms of scaling a business and figuring out what your budget is. And what made it so popular is that there are two main influencers in the space. They are Tommy Mello and Mike Andy. These are the performance pay guys. So the first one was Mike Andy's. He started talking about it first and he created pay for performance, P for P. And then Tommy Mello started talking about performance pay because he started growing a really big and large garage door business, and he touts performance pay as well. So I'm going to go over both of the models. So Mike Andes is very transparent about his model. Tommy Mello is less transparent, but I did a lot of digging and I figured it out, I think, to a degree. I don't know if it's going to be one for one, but it's going to be pretty close. So I'm going to show you these two different models. The first one I'm going to start with is Mike Andes. It's the pay for performance model. So this is pretty straightforward. So you have an expected hours for every single job that you are doing. And then you're going to take the actual hours your employee actually accomplishes that task in. And that difference is the pay for performance. And that's what you give them in terms of revenue. So that's what you give them in terms of compensation. And so this is better than not doing anything at all because it provides a baseline incentive structure compared to flat hourly pay. Having a pay for performance structure is better than not having anything at all. And what it's going to incentivize is speed. So it's going to make your guys move faster because they're getting paid on how fast they do the work. And then it's also going to keep labor costs under control. It's never going to exceed the expectations because that's how you set it up. The expected hours are the maximum amount of money they can make. Now, the negatives are it's pretty hard to scale, and it's not hard to scale because it's a complicated formula. You see it up here. It's not hard to conceptualize. It's that it relies entirely on your employees tracking their time accurately and getting that read accurately. And what ends up happening is the most important KPI becomes time tracking, which as a business owner, time tracking is like the least fun part of the gig. So we don't want that to be the number one KPI in most situations. And lastly, there is a firm earning ceiling because hours are a fixed time. They cannot do something in no time and get more money, or they can't do something in less than no time because that's impossible. So, like, there is a fixed ceiling regardless of how much work or how fast they actually move. With this, again, so pay for performance is good. Like it is better than nothing. It's the thing I really want to drive home, and it will work for a lot of industries. Those industries are like landscaping, window washing, pressure washing, home cleaning. Pay for performance really works. Generally, the more skilled your employees get, the less viable this model is. Mike Endy's pay for performance is that it is focused on time. So the entire thing is built around time. And then Tommy Mello's is focused on exclusively production. So now the caveat here is for Tommy Mello's performance pay structure, this entire thing is an educated guess based off of his job postings, books, and podcasts. This information isn't in any one succinct place, so I could be super wrong. And none of this is to poo poo on Tommy or poo poo on what he's built because he's like a billionaire creating a garage door company. So, like, this isn't a shot at him or anything like that. This is just what I see and what I focus on and spend all my energy on is compensation. So I'm going to break it down and then we're going to show you where we can potentially improve. So what he does and what I really like is pay for performance. The way he uses it is for his installers. So his installers have a pay for performance structure, and it works really well because of the machine Tommy's built. He can get so many leads and so much business coming through that pay for performance model, expected minus actual, if the guys can get through a lot of work, the average pay they're making is anywhere from 42 bucks an hour. The top earners are making like 47.50 an hour, which is crazy money. They can get commissions on upsells, and then they also get a sign-on bonus. And with all of his structures, everyone gets paid weekly, which I think is important because getting paid every week is just really nice feeling, especially when you're making extra money or you're making this kind of commission. They're expected minus actual. They get the pay for performance. It's the base, and then they have a range that goes up based on how much work they end up doing. Now, the sales and service technician he runs is piece rate model based off of profit with tiers. So what that means is he doesn't pay a base rate. If you're getting a base rate or you're hitting the minimum at Tommy's company, you're probably going to get canned. And that's just the nature of the beast when you're in sales only roles. If you do not produce, you get fired. It just is what it is. So how it works is, from what I can see, his employees, his sales technicians, service technicians, go out, they diagnose, they sell and repair. They get 13% commission based off of profit for everything that they sell. And as they continue to perform, I don't know if it's within the month, within a quarter, or within the year, they get additional commission up to 19%. And now they also get a sign-on bonus, and again, they get a pay cycle weekly. Now, the big thing here is why he's setting those tiers up, and we'll talk more about this later. But tiers are designed to incentivize employees to continue to performing and growing, but it's also a mechanism to keep low labor costs lower. So like they will be making tons of money, and there's a very real reality where Tommy probably has technicians making close to $1 million if he's getting enough volume through the door. I think they'd be a little bit crazy though, so it's probably closer to like $500,000. I think $500,000 is more in the ballpark, but I can't speak for him and the amount of volume he does and how good these technicians are. Specific model is how you maximize money. So if your goal as a home service owner is growth at all costs, Tommy's methods are great because you are incentivizing your employee to sell as much as they physically can and work hard to sell as much as they can because they will continue to make more and more and more and more money. Now, you also get things like a company vehicle. You get great benefits. It's all W-2, none of it's 1099. They get training and they have a career path progression, and they have weekly meetings celebrating performance. And where Tommy Mello really shines beyond just this operational context, because obviously he's built a billion-dollar company, he knows what he's doing. But when it comes to compensation specifically, he makes sure when they're rolling out a new compensation structure, they test it with their top performer, then roll it out to the next three, and then they roll it out to the whole org after they've tested it for a quarter. All the calculations are based off the previous week, and then they have scorecards that they review every week that shows what is a top performer and what isn't. And all of these are really good ideas, and you should take them into your business as well. The thing about his method is the employee sentiment, right? So growth at all costs, growing like that. On Indeed, 38% of Indeed respondents feel like they're paid fairly, and these are as sales/service technicians. Now take this with a grain of salt, because the only reason you go to Indeed to leave a review is if you're incredibly happy or incredibly angry. So it is what it is. But the reason that would exist the way that exists and why it would be that low with the employee resentment is because 40% are probably hitting their numbers or blowing their numbers out of the water, and 60% are cycling in and out. I come from sales, and with sales jobs that are high pressure, high reward, this is usually the retention rate, give or take. It's about 40 to 50%. The 40 to 50% are making 150, 200, 300,000 a year, but then everybody else falls off and hates it because they were stressed and they were miserable. So it's not for everybody. So it's just a pick your poison kind of thing. And again, so Mike Andy is all about time. Tommy's all about production. For me, and what I see with these two methods is both of these methods are really hyper focused on the company's well-being, and they don't really take into account the employee satisfaction. Now, Tommy's better at this than Mike is, from what I have seen and what I've read, where Tommy's very good about making employees feel heard and feel cherished and feel valuable, because that's a lot of the game. And that's how you get guys to buy into what you're actually doing, is to treat them with respect, dignity, and make them feel valued and feel heard. Tommy has a lot of things in his books, teachings, and his podcasts about doing that, and he's excellent at that. But at the core of it, these compensation methods are not focused on the employees as much as they're focused on maximizing the company's bottom line, which you should always be doing. But there's a better way to do this. The way I want you to think about performance pay and what it's actually doing is we are trying to drive down labor costs while keeping employee satisfaction high. So Mike Andes is one side of the coin. He is hours based. So he focus on your hours and your time and how much you're working. Tommy Mello's the other side of the coin. This is only your production, so the only thing that matters is what you can produce for the company. Team Buy-in is right in the middle. So we care about the employees' efficiency and how they're performing, but we also want them to get rewarded for additional production and bake that into how your compensation works. So what we focus on is we want to control the labor costs while maximizing earning potential. So the goal of any performance pay plan is balancing these two competing forces, and you're going to constantly be improving and working on them. How do I keep my labor costs sustainable while paying my employees as much as physically possible? And that is the equilibrium, and that's how you get the team buy-in, is you find that equilibrium between controlling labor costs and maximizing earning potential. Easier said than done. How the fuck do you do that? That is where I come in, and that is what Team Buy-in does, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. Are you ready? First, you need to understand your base wage before you touch the commission. So we are going to recommend every single client we ever work with from now until we die to use a base wage. Why? Base wages are just the safety net for your employee to feel comfortable every day going to work. Know they're getting paid something. There's not going to be sales pressure for them to sell people shit they do not need. And that's always the biggest complaint I hear about commission, is that they're going to sell shit that people do not need. Then do not make commission the end all be all of their life. Make it a part of what they're doing. And they're not going to treat people as dollar signs. They're going to treat them as people. Now, there are exceptions to the rules. That's on you to figure out who that exception is and not to hire them or to fire them quickly. Regardless, the way I want you to think about your base wage, because everyone here or everybody watching this probably pays your employee a base wage. You might pay them piece rate, but if you're not, and you're in the bucket that's paying them a base wage, here is what you need to do. You need to take the base wage and divide it by your target labor cost percentage. That target labor cost percentage, you want that to be 20% or lower for most trades, especially the skilled ones, HVAC, plumbing, electric, 20% or lower is your target. When you get into ones that are a little bit lower skilled, like home cleaning, lawn care, pressure washing, window washing, that kind of thing, labor costs can go higher because you need less materials and you need less expertise to do it. But regardless, take that base wage you're paying them, divide it by your target labor costs. Once you have that, you will understand what your technician needs to actually produce every month to justify their base wage. There is a lived reality where you do this equation and you look at what your employee is actually producing and how much they're actually costing you, and you go, oh shit, that is not where it needs to be according to this man on my screen. And it's not. But here's how you solve it, is when you are creating a commission structure, you realize, okay, Jim's labor cost is 25%. So before Jim even gets a sniff of commission, he needs to hit that amount of revenue to bring the labor cost target to where you want it to be. And that's it. Like, you just have to bake in a threshold or a tier where he doesn't get commission until he hits a specific point. And that's just justifying his base. Now, the biggest thing is you're not and we're going to talk about this more later, but you just cannot lower your employees' wages to then give them the opportunity to make commission. Like, you can. It's a free country. You can do whatever you want. But I want you to look externally and imagine yourself being told that you're getting paid less money guaranteed every month at the opportunity to make more money. That would suck. And if you don't think it sucks, okay, we're different people, fine. But I think that sucks. So what I would recommend 100% of the time is never lower your employees' base wages. You fucked it up because you didn't know your numbers when you initially started paying them. And now you have to eat it and figure out how to compensate. And the goal of a good compensation structure is to pull their wages up. And then once they get to a certain threshold, then you can create a systematized way of doing compensation, because that's the end goal here, is you want to have a systematized compensation structure for your entire business. So now that we've talked about base wages, let's talk about how you actually want to think about commissions. So the first thing you got to do is find your floor of average production. This means you're going to take the total revenues produced by all of your technicians. You're going to multiply it by the target labor cost percentage. This will give you a labor budget. So whatever your target labor cost percentage, call it 20%, 15%, 10%, anything lower than 10%, you suck. Don't do that. But you can do whatever number you want. Again, it's a free country. I don't care how you run your business. I'm just telling you how I think you should based on the top performing companies I talk to and work with every single day. Now, you're going to take that labor cost budget, that labor budget, and you're going to divide it by the total number of hours worked for the year for all of your technicians. And this is going to give you a target hourly rate. And this is going to be your maximum sustainable rate for all of your technicians at your current average production. So this is what you can afford to pay per hour while keeping your labor costs proportional to revenue is the way to think about it. This is just your floor. Then we're going to find the ceiling. So we're going to do that same exercise, but instead of being in general for your entire company, you're going to do it for your top performer. You're going to pull the tech with the highest revenue per hour over the same period and do that same math you just did. Then you understand what that number is, and that is the ceiling of what is currently achievable in your shop today and what your technician's output is functionally worth. Now, there are caveats to this. Like your guy could be working a lot of overtime. There could be outliers like he sold one gigantic mega commercial job. There's a bunch of different things that could potentially impact this. So like use some discerning logic. This is like general on purpose, so it covers a lot of information deeply. If you leave a comment or send me a message directly or ask me how to do something, I will answer and create content on whatever people are asking. I just want you to understand the core of what this is, because there is no good information about performance pay, and that is what I'm trying to create here. Now, the last thing is you're actually building the structure. Your goal, every single one of your technicians to perform where the top performer performs. Because once you have dialed in your numbers, it's going to raise your revenue and actually lower your labor cost, because you've built your compensation structure in such a way that the better they perform, the cheaper it's actually going to get for you and the more money you have. And so then it's up to you to raise their compensation. And that this isn't like a one-time do it and then you're done thing. This is the thing you're going to constantly be improving from now until forever. You want to build that structure, like I just said, that grows the pie. The goal is to grow the total revenue. So both that floor that we just went over and that ceiling is going to increase while your company grows. That's it. So the more money you make, the more money you can give to your employees, and the more you can pay people, and the better talent you can recruit, because you're paying more people and then you're paying better people to produce more. And then it raises the quality of your company over time because everybody's making more money. So what you first want to do is set a base wage. Now, again, if you've messed up off the jump, it's okay. If moving forward, you're going to set an SOP, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but you're going to set a wage that's near that average production. That example I showed on the other screen, like 28 bucks, 85 cents. You don't want to do that exactly because you want to give them room to make additional commission to get to that number, but around that number would make sense in that specific scenario. Now, the goal of commission is to reward growth. So you want to compensate them to produce them and push them above the average. So their floor, the way you want to think about that floor is where you want them to, if they're just mediocre to average, they are getting paid that much money. That's not where you want your technicians to be, but not every technician can be a superstar. So like you have to just make sure that those people are taken care of, because they're still driving more revenue, or they're driving a lot of revenue for your business, so you cannot forget about them. Now, total pay can exceed the ceiling today. So what's going to happen is you're going to get guys that are going to bust through your top performing ceiling in terms of like how much they're producing and how much they're making. And that's okay. You need to not worry about how much you're paying them. You need to just worry about the actual labor cost against your business. If you have calculated and figured out your numbers, this isn't going to be a problem. Like if a guy makes $500,000 off of your compensation structure, hell yeah. You just paid him $500,000 over the year because he was producing some ridiculous number. It might be like $2.5 million if your labor cost was 20%. And if one guy produced you $2.5 million, I promise you would give him 500 grand and you would also kiss his feet every morning and maybe even wash them. So from there, your top performers who are set your ceiling, they're going to for sure bust through the ceiling, and you need to celebrate that. And we'll talk more about celebration and how to build a culture around it later. But like the goal is to constantly be scaling this entire thing up. So you're not just going to set a commission structure or set a compensation structure and be like, cool, I did it. Everyone's getting paid. Because then your business is going to grow. And then they need to experience that growth with you. If you're just getting all of the upside, you're going to lose technicians or you're going to lose buy-in, and both of them would hurt your business long term. So How do you actually make this commission structure like this? So you don't like what a lot of companies are pitching, build your full structure and just roll it out. No, do not do that. It sucks for you because you have to figure out all these contingencies before you actually roll out a structure. It'll suck for your employee because they don't understand how they're getting paid and why they're getting paid these things. And it's not going to give you the kind of bump that you want. So you're going to roll this out in stages. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to create a simple, basic commission structure. It can be something as simple as you get 3% for everything you do in the business, don't care. Will that work? It depends on your guys and how money motivated they are. You know your numbers, you know your profit numbers, so you're building out this performance pay structure. Figure out how you want to do it. The key is just not to make it too complicated, is what I'm trying to drive home. Don't add too many things. Like the simpler, the better to start. And you're going to roll it out to your top performer, ideally, like Tommy does. And then you're going to roll it out to the next guy. And then from there, you roll it out to the rest of the team. But you only roll it out to everybody once you've actually seen that performance. So ideally, it's just they do X services. And then the caveat here is if you fucked up when you gave them their base rate and their base rate's too high to justify a commission until a threshold, you have to set a threshold where they only start making money once they hit that threshold. So that's when those tiers and those thresholds come in. You don't start with baking them in unless you have to because you messed up. Now, once this is rolled in your business, you're going to see the performance increase over 3 to 6 months. Depends on how comfortable your guys are. When you start hearing them asking for more, like how can I make more money? Or you start just seeing a performance increase, whatever you end up hearing or seeing, you'll know when it's time to add the next tier. It'll be very clear. And then you add that next tier. And what that is you create a mechanism where they go above and beyond every call and they make those extra asks because they get paid for hitting specific targets. So like a revenue tier or a profit tier, whichever one you prefer, depending on how dialed in your numbers are, is you create a tier at specific thresholds where they can start making additional compensation. So like, let's say you're giving them 3% for everything. They get 3% of everything until they hit $5,000 for them. Like 6%, and then they get 6% of everything until they get $15,000, and they get 10% of everything. And like these numbers are made up. So how you set up tiers is you figure out what your labor cost is. And that's what we talked about earlier. You figure out what your target labor cost is. Once your guy hits that target labor cost, then you can implement a tier. Now, if your labor cost is good enough already, you can add a commission off the rip. You start with that basic commission, and then you're adding tiers where the numbers start declining. So what will happen and what you'll see is as you continue to make your guys make more and more money and you are continuing to calculate their labor costs, their functional labor cost goes lower and lower and lower and lower the higher the revenue goes. So your job is to keep the tiers in a way that escalates and keeps that labor cost target where it needs to be. Because if you end up with like a 6% labor cost because you have an incredibly top performer, that means you're not paying that guy enough, and that means that dude's gonna leave. You want those guys to stay forever, so you need to create a ladder for them to climb up, is the best way to think about it. So if they are making, we'll call it $15,000 a month, and that gets them break even, cool. If you figured out, if you're paying them $20 an hour and their labor cost they have to hit is like $8,000, cool. You can just assume that they're gonna do that if they're worth anything, give them like a 3% commission and create tiers. Or you can only give them commissions on specific services. So you just have to figure out what you want to do specific on a company by company basis. So I can't just sit here and tell you exactly what to do. You have to figure it out. I'm just giving you the tools to understand how to figure it out. Then once you have the basic commissions figured out, then you have the tiers figured out, the last thing you're going to do is you're going to layer in spiffs. These are things you want people to specifically sell or that you want more actions of. Think of it like one-time payments for selling a specific service or hitting a specific review target or whatever other behavior is going to move the business forward. You give them spiffs. Like it can be like, it depends on you. Again, everyone does spiffs differently. What I strongly recommend you do not do is create spiffs that are just expectation. Do like a spiff that actually drives revenue producing behavior, like reviews, selling specific things, helping somebody out on a callback, whatever it is. Just like that's how you want to think more of it. For base tiers and just tiers in general, you need all of these things I'm talking to you about and I'm telling you, you need to codify this as an SOP. It is a standard operating procedure. You're not going to be giving Jim more money than Kevin. because Jim's been a plumber for 30 years and Kevin just started. That's not a thing you can do anymore unless Jim can prove that he produces the revenue needed to justify how much money he expects to get paid in the base. Like everything is just math. So like if that is not the case, regardless of how good Jim is or how much better Jim is than Kevin is, he's going to cost you more money because he's not producing what he needs to be producing. And Kevin will actually end up making more money. You'll also probably be hungrier. So it's about codifying this as an SOP so that when people get paid more, there's a reason behind it and you can point to it. So if they're like, I want a raise, you're like, this is what you need to do to get a raise. They're like, I want more commission. You're like, this is what you need to do to get more commission. Like you take it away the guessing and you take away hypotheticals or the favoritism. You kill it. You take it behind the shed and you shoot it in the back of the head. And you focus on structuring how you're actually building this out. So everything is formalized, and ideally, every technician has the same commission setup. This is easier said than done because a lot of, especially old companies, have had the same setup for years. And the reason you're watching this video is that you don't think it's working anymore. So you need to formalize it. And formalizing it is easier said than done. And again, it's specific to each company. So like if you want more information specific to your situation, like message me, hit me up. I'm always available. Probably a little bit too available, but it is what it is. And then your tiers need to have room to grow indefinitely. So base tiers or commission tiers, they can grow indefinitely. So like with your base tiers, it needs to be built specifically around the amount of money they're generating so that their labor cost doesn't blow up. And then their commission tiers, it's the same thing. Like you just need to make sure you have tiers covered for every single potential outcome. Because like if you have a guy that goes ballistic, you don't want to be on the hook for a ridiculous amount of money, or you don't want him to feel upset that he doesn't get any benefit for like 5xing your next closest guy. You want to make sure you've set everything up and assumed everything ahead of time. And then if like he breaks your commission structure, cool, pay him out for breaking it, fix it the next month. Like you are in control of this. And that's the biggest thing. Like you're going to demystify how this whole world works. And now that you have a structure in place, easier to add and change things rather than rebuilding the whole thing from bottom up. And the biggest thing here is with this structure, there is technically no cap on earning. So if your guy goes nuts and he works OT every day and he like is doing 6 jobs a day and each job he has an average ticket of $3,000 and you've set up your commission structure right, he's gonna make a boatload of money. But also in that scenario, you are also making a boatload of money and everybody's winning. So the most common mistakes I see that are actually breaking performance pay is ruining trust. Everything is around breaking trust. So here are some ways to do that. Number one is you roll out performance pay and you cut their base. You say, hey, you're not getting a base anymore, or you're getting $10 less an hour because I'm trying this new thing called performance pay. They're going to say, oh, I fucking hate performance pay. I left private equity because of performance pay, which is the piece rate system. Or they're going to say, I don't like you anymore. I'm going to just leave. Or they're going to just give you a bunch of shit. And all of these things are things you don't need to do. So you're just going to bake it into the structure like we talked about, and then you don't have to cut anything. Now, you also need to not hold it over someone's head. You're not like waving it like a piece of meat over there and be like, ooh, look. It's a compensation system. We're compensating them for their time and you're doing it to the best of your ability so they get paid a bunch and you get paid a bunch. That's it. You are aligning your incentives together. You're not using it as a piece of meat to get them to do what you want. And in that same vein, you're not hitting them with the piece of meat if they don't behave. You're not saying, oh, I'm going to take away your commissions because fuck you. Like, you're not doing that. If you can't manage their behavior or you can't manage them, you're not using compensation as a tool to do that. You either need to fix what they're doing and give them steps to improve, or you need to cut their ass and find someone that likes to make a lot of money. That's it. And then again, documentation, man. Like, you got to document your compensation. Like, guys want to know how they're getting paid and why they're getting paid stuff. If it's a secret, they will be pissed. So just don't do it in any arbitrary way. Like, play no favorites. Be very transparent with how guys are getting paid. It will be hard for a second, and then it will get really easy and become part of your entire business. Now, this goes in to making performance pay a part of your culture of success and achievement. How to do this is easier said than done. And again, this is all part of implementing a larger system. But you first need to identify what actually separates the top performers from the bottom performer. That's like one of the most important things here because you need to figure out what KPIs, so what key performance indicators, do your top guys have that your other guys do not have. Then you need to build a framework of reviewing with them and create clear benchmarks of success of what the top guys are doing. And then you need to review those KPIs with everybody else and be like, okay, cool, the top guys do this. This is what we see to get this kind of outcome. And you do that with them, whether weekly, biweekly, or monthly, and help them get to where you want them to be. And then you give them step and insights on how to actually get there. So you're creating a roadmap on how the top guys operate, and then you're scaling that throughout the rest of your organization consistently. And the more you do this, the less you're gonna have to do this because everyone's gonna be performing where they need to perform. And then if people stop performing, you have a very clear way of getting them back on track. Pretty simple in theory, harder to execute. Again, we can help you if you want. Now, the last thing is you want to build a performance pay culture of reward and fun. Work doesn't have to suck, especially this kind of work. Like you're talking to people every day, people are fun, and you are a small business owner running a business. This is your business. So the first thing I always recommend you do is you have a leaderboard and then you make a really big deal off of the top performer. Your top guy performs, give him something. Every week, whoever's the top performer gets a $100 bonus. Or every month, the top performer gets a steak dinner or whatever you want to do to reward, give it to them. Just keep in mind, the more things that you're running like that, the less potency they have. So just balance that, where if guys are just seeing like a leaderboard and then they hear this white noise, it's not going to have the effect. So you want to like do it enough where they feel appreciated, but not so much that it becomes white noise and an expectation. Now, in that same vein, what you can't do enough of is celebrate promotions. When they get to the next tier, whatever you define that is, celebrate them. Be like, you did it. Hell yeah. Make it a big deal. Show everyone else in the group. Ask them what they did to get there. Whatever it is, make it a big deal for them to achieve in your business that other people want to achieve as well. And then the last one is more just of a philosophy. It's what Tommy preaches, and I also preach it. I think it's a really good idea to invite your guys over like once a week, twice a week, or whatever, whether you have a shop, whether your shop is still your house, whatever it is. I know you can grill and I know you can smoke meats. I know you can do one, the other, or both. Do that for your team. Eat with people that work for you. That's how you actually learn what's going on in your business, where you can improve who your people are, what motivates them. This will give you insights that just structures like we're talking about could never provide you. And it will also make them like you more, which makes them more likely to work for you super hard. Keeping your people is the most important thing. And if none of this is a good reason to do it, and you're like, fuck that, hiring a new person is really hard and expensive. If you have good people, it will cost you less money to treat them well than to treat them indifferently and then find other people to replace them that leave because you didn't appreciate them when they were there. They're like the one that got away. You don't want to do it. So that is everything that I wanted to review. There was just nothing like this online, and I want every home service owner, whether or not they use my product, to understand how to actually do performance pay, because it isn't some big scary thing. It's not the boogeyman. It's just how you're paying your people and compensating them and creating a system that rewards them on top of the compensation. It's aligning employee incentives with employer outcomes. And thinking of it in any adversarial way is just a symptom of, in my opinion, private equity taking it to its logical extreme, which is production only. Like my belief and what we built this company behind is we don't think home service owners are eager to build a business where the only way people are compensated is through production. We think generally if you give people base and you give them additional commission, you're going to get better outcomes in the long run. And what we believe we're going to start seeing is people like companies that build compensation structures that are built around employee happiness and longevity are going to start taking employees away from private equity, because you'll still be able to compensate them pretty similarly, but not give them the same kind of pressure and still give them the service that home service is. So like you got to put the service back in home service. Like it's not home sales, it's home service. So like that's what we built everything around. That's what TeamBuyIn is built around. We're the performance pay platform. Feel free to reach out to me via email. You can text me, you can comment, you can message. I don't care. I'm easy to reach. I hope you got value out of this video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.